Mook, and a Mike, hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet Billy O'Connor.
My brother, what's up with you today? How you doing? How's your waggle? You playing any golf? How's the waggle?
My waggle's just fine, thank you.
It's always good to have a good waggle, you know what I mean?
I got a good waggle for sure. How's your waggle?
It's hanging, brother, it's hanging. It's all good.
So, this has been an interesting week, huh?
Oh, man, I can't get over this thing. I mean, everybody's glued to the election results. Everybody.
Nobody's governing the nation, but everybody's glued to the election results.
I know we're divided. Everybody knows we're divided, but I mean, what I can't believe is how we're divided so 50-50. I mean, it's incredible to me. Every state is like 5,000 votes, the swing states. Every vote. I didn't think it was possible to be that divided.
Well, it just shows you that the pollsters don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Even the bookies. Let me tell you, the bookies too. I mean, I usually go by the bookies. I don't go by the pollsters. But the bookies had Biden 2-1. I mean, they had 10-1 to win. Not Pennsylvania, but Virginia, Wisconsin. The pollsters had 14-1 to Wisconsin. Look how close it was.
Well, normally I love James Carville. But James Carville's so full of shit right about now. He was predicting a landslide on Tuesday, and he was predicting a landslide even on Thursday morning, knowing what we already know now.
He said the Democrats were going to win Texas. That was a pipe dream. I mean, I knew that was a pipe dream, but Georgia, they got a shot. But I figured Trump would carry the South.
I love the guy. I mean, any guy who said that he would, if his heart was on fire, he would piss down his throat. He wouldn't piss down his throat to put out the fire. Is a good guy by me.
I had my niece, Italian niece. She says to me, I don't know what the big deal is with counting these votes. She goes, why did they bring in the Italian women? Bring in the Italian women. She goes, they got an accurate list of every gift they've ever received or given in the last 40 years. Let them take care of it for counting the vote. And even the bookmakers. I say, bring in the bookmakers. You think they're going to take 5 days to figure out the results?
No.
Come on.
No. And all these guys that write these books, Woodward wrote Fear and Rage, Mary Trump wrote Too Much, John Bolton wrote In the Room Where It Happened. They read for 50% of the audience because the other 50% aren't interested in what they say.
Yeah, it's affirmation journalism all the way. It's if people see something, well, look at Fox and CNBC. It's like if people get a piece of information that doesn't agree with what they think of, it's counterintuitive, they refuse to listen to anything more. And besides that, they're writing books. The problem in today's audience, everybody's into bumper sticker wisdom. Give me 4 words. Don't give me any more than 4 words. I can't handle it. So a book. I mean, I read Woodward's book, and I thought it was great. And I actually read it because I thought it would be a hit job on Trump, and it wasn't. He took a couple of good swings at Obama, and he told you a lot of stuff behind the scenes about how smart Tillerson was, how smart Mathis is, which you have to know. I mean, you know where you're going to be a general in the army and be a dope, but that ain't going to happen. But Mathis is extremely well read. And so it was a good book, but who sat down? What percentage of the electorate is going to read those books?
Well, they're all writing for their audience. Yeah. I mean, that's all anybody should be writing about anyway. But it's unbelievable to me. Anyway, it occurred to me that this election showed me that if there wasn't a COVID outbreak, we wouldn't even be talking about Biden.
I agree with you 300%. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, the thing is,
they gave him a.
But I don't understand Trump's. Why is he running against the disease? Why did he just, I mean, I get the ego thing. I get that his ego may not, egomaniacal. He's a megalomaniac. But why would he run against the pandemic? Why not just shut up and say, okay, these are the scientists, let them do it?
Because his polling people or his pollsters or whoever told him that was a losing battle. That
I don't know how you can run against the disease. I mean, we got a guy who reads MRIs in charge of a pandemic.
Maybe he knows something that you don't know.
I'm sure he knows millions of things that I don't know.
By the way,
what am I, just a broken down fireman? What do I know?
That's our intrepid reporter, Derek Harris, piping in from the outskirts, and he's always welcome to join us, and he will join us regularly.
We had an interesting discussion earlier about the size of our appendages.
And when we figured that his appendage was at least as big as both of ours put
Well,
together.
I'm probably the only guy in the room, Frank, who can run into a wall with a heart on and break his nose. I got the Irish curse,
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it's led me on a merry chase, Frank. It's led me on a merry chase. I got no complaints.
Yeah.
Whenever a woman says, "What are you going to satisfy with that?" I always smile and say, "Me."
And so we have it.
And there it is. That's it in a nutshell.
So what else you want to talk about beside the election?
Yeah, I don't want to talk politics. I mean, I'm worn out by it. Everybody's worn out by it. I want to talk. What do you want to talk about? Give me a subject. I can pontificate about anything. I don't know anything about anything. When you get older, you feel like you can talk about anything. Why not?
Give me a good bar story.
A good bar story, yeah? Let me think if I can think of a good bar story. We had a guy in one of the oldest bars in the Bronx. The Jolly Tinker was the name of the bar. And the guy who owned it, Mike Prendergast, little Irish guy, he had the joint for 53 years. It was the oldest bar in the Bronx. And that's some run, 53 years. When I had, when you go for a bar run, you're hoping to get 10 years, 53 years is a hell of a run. And everybody was right near Fordham University, so everybody that went down to see a Yankee game or any successful guy that went to Fordham always came back to the Tinker to have a couple of drinks because Mike was the draw. He was like Malachi McCourt, who we've done interviews with, and I love Malachi. And Mike is the same kind of a character. But one day somebody called up the Tinker, and this guy behind the bar was a retired fireman, Brian, and he picks up the phone and he goes, the phone's, "Yeah, let me talk to Mike." I know, Steve. Let me talk to Steve. And he says, "What, Steve?" He said, "We got, which Steve?" He said, "We got a lot of Steves." He says, "Crazy Steve." He says, "Which Crazy Steve? We got 3. And that's the kind of saloon it was. Everybody in the place was a nut. But there was one guy I used to drink with, a great athlete, Ray Weldon. And we used to call him the Dome. And the reason we called him the Dome is every time he was in Vietnam, and he was in Vietnam during he was a ground pounder in Nam, and he got a Bronze Star over there. So, I mean, he was the real deal. And he told me when he went into Cambodia, when they invaded Cambodia, he was delighted to get back to Nam. He said that's how bad Cambodia was, under Nixon. And he never talked about Vietnam. And I used to pump him because I was over there, but I was a computer operator. I didn't have anything. I wasn't a ground pounder like he was. He was the real deal. And he'd say, "You know what, Billy?" He'd get drunk and he'd get right up to my nose. And he had a nose like mine or yours, like an elbow. And he'd get right up to my nose. And he'd go nose to nose. "You know anything that never bothered me? I was always afraid I was going to look up and catch one right in the dome. Right in the dome. Because in Nam, most of the guys, they'd put a clip in and they just put it over their head. It wasn't nobody looking. I mean, it was like clip after clip. I forget the statistic on how many bullets it took for us to kill each guy, each Vietnamese soldier. Mm-hmm. But it's astronomical. I mean, because guys would clip after clip after clip. But he said, "I was always afraid of catching one in the dome," and he got the nickname Dome after that. And I don't know what that has to do with saloons, but I drift.
As you often do.
I often do. I'm Irish. I can't make a long story short. It's the way it is. But
50,000.
50,000.
50,000 rounds of ammunition to kill each.
One death, 50,000 bullets.
Yeah, and that's not surprising to me. That's how it went. I mean, nobody wanted to be a victim. Everybody just clip after clip and over their heads. 50,000 bullets to kill each Vietnamese soldier.
Wow.
Yep.
That's remarkable.
That is remarkable.
Our book's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Our book is doing pretty well. If These Lips Could Talk is available on Amazon and Acclaim, people are actually buying it.
Well, pretty soon, I'm telling you, the royalties are going to swell up to a trickle. I'm just...
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how anybody makes money other than the publisher on 10% or 12% or 15% royalties.
You don't write books to make money, that's for sure.
Boy, that's for sure.
And our third book...
At least we don't.
And our third book, us and the publisher are just a little bit apart. I mean, we're looking for a 6-figure advance. It's just, she still refuses to read the manuscript. We're just a tinge apart.
Well, speaking of books, we're very fortunate today to have a wonderful guest who I've known for, almost 30 years. When we saw him today, he said, you don't look any different at all. I said, well, I got a picture today. I got a picture that'll prove that. I'll prove the opposite of that. But he's a very good friend. He's a fine actor, comedian. He's not a comedian. He's an actor, writer, producer,
Author.
Bon vivant, author. He was the star of a movie I produced called Babe Ruth. He's the star of Avatar. He's the star of Don't Breathe. He's the star of so many different things. I just want to say hello to Stephen Lang.
Hiya, Frank, Billy.
A real honor.
Great
for me,
to be
man.
here.
A real
Thank
honor
you.
for me, man. The deeper I dug into you, the more I got involved. I said, this guy has been around, man. How many years have you been acting?
Somewhere north of 45 at this point. I'll tell you Malachi McCourt's story. You mentioned Malachi.
Do you know Malachi?
Oh, I know Malachi very well. Malachus, I go way, way back with him. I was doing, years and years ago in the 70s, we were doing a production of Sean O'Casey's Shadow of a Gunman, wonderful play, and we were playing opposite each other in the leads. And in rehearsal, I'd come up to him and I'd greet him and put my arms on his shoulders and everything. And after several days, Malachi says to me, he says, Stephen, is it all right if I tell you something? I've got something to tell you. And I said, what is it, Malachi? He said, well, the Irish people, they don't touch each other. they don't touch each other. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting, Stephen, but did you know that 80% of the Irish population has never been completely naked in their life?
Do you know that's so true? Like, a lot of Irish stopped going to Mass when the Catholics started with the hold hands things in the middle. I swear to Christ, that's true as God. A lot of them said, I'm not going to Mass and holding hands with strangers, I mean, they just don't do it. But Malachi, I don't know if you read his book, Among Swimming, was his first book.
I had to.
You had to.
Didn't want to, but I had to.
And that's a terrific book. I mean, must have read that book 4 times. Because,
and his brother could write a bit too.
Yeah, Frank wasn't bad. As a matter of fact, I think his 3rd or 4th novel, Malachi, was I Read Your Brother's Book, was the name of his book. Because everybody used to come to us, hey, I read your brother's book. I read your brother's book.
And his brother was Frank McCourt.
You were talking about
exactly.
the bars, and they, of course, had the Bells of Hell. That was their
The
bar.
Bells of Hell?
The Bells of Hell.
Wow, I can't believe you know about that.
Ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me.
And he talks about it in Among Swimming.
Yeah, sure.
And Among Swimming was actually the Hail Mary. Like when you say the Hail Mary full of grace, the Lord is with thee, amongst women, he thought they were saying amongst swimming. And that's what he called the book about, amongst women.
It sounds like the same thing when you say it.
Right.
There's no differentiation at all. What you're saying is among swimming, M-O-N-K, or amongst...
Stephen's a Shakespearean actor. He's been trained. Look at me. I'm just a mook for the street. What do I know?
Yes, well, that couldn't be
Clear.
that couldn't be more true. But still, among swimming.
Among swimming, and not amongst women.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, sure.
Is this going to launch my career? Can you get me a shot at Warner Brothers or what? What do you think?
No.
No. But that's great that you know Malachi. And the Bells of Hell, man, that was a hell of a saloon. He used to just empty the register every now and then and just take off the island with whoever was hanging around at the time on Broadway,
Yep, Bells of Hell, and then go a little further west, there was the Bucket of Blood.
The Bucket of Blood, yeah, that's Malachi to a T.
And the 70s, and I don't remember them very well.
Yeah, if you did, you weren't there. So, we were on Malachi's show a couple of weeks ago for an interview.
I don't know what we said. What was said to me, anyway. Billy was interpreting.
Yeah, he's the best. He's a character.
He's
and
what,
still,
86 years old?
86, and still... the tongue like acid, like it just whips at you. He don't stop. Yeah. And very opinionated. Yeah. He came into the firehouse one time, and he's an avid atheist. He's a big time atheist. And he started, down the firehouse in the basement having a couple of drinks. And Mike, the tinker, who I talked about before, owned the oldest bar. He brought Malachi down about 4:00 in the morning. And of course, in the old days in the South Bronx, and Harlem. We were busy, so busy that nobody went to bed because there was no sense of going to bed. We're going to get another job in 5 minutes. So after a job, we'd go downstairs, we'd have a couple of cans of beer, and, off the record, we had a couple of cans of beer, and we'd talk about the job, analyze it. And they brought Malachi down there. He started talking about atheists. He was drunk. And these guys were ready to crucify him by the time they had to get him out of there.
But understand, Malachi's 86, so this atheism thing could end at any time now.
That's a good point. I want to talk about the fact, the many things I found out about you, over the course of your 44-year career, 45-year career. All the different things you've done, even audiobooks. I had a guy a friend of mine from the Bronx, I said, I'm going to interview Stephen Lang today with Frank. And he said, man, that guy's the best reader I ever read. He did an audio book, and I listened to it about 14 times. And, of course, I guess that was, in your let's be able to get through the night part of your career, when you got to do what you got to do.
I still do them.
Do you?
I don't do them as much as I used to. I mean, I've done some, 100 or 200. I really have no idea.
Well, have you done that many?
But there's a technique to doing it, and once in a while I like to kind of trot it out and do one if I can. Sure.
This
sure.
guy.
I like reading aloud. Always liked reading aloud.
Really?
Yeah.
This guy told me you were the best he ever heard. It was mandolin.
Corelli's mandolin.
Corelli's mandolin.
Corelli's
he said it was the best audio book he ever heard.
Wow.
And speaking of books, this is yours. Frank, the Wheatfield. Oh, there's the camera. Yeah. Glad to see you. The Wheatfield by Stephen Lang, and it's a book about Gettysburg.
Why don't you let Stephen tell us what
Yes,
it's
Stephen,
about?
how about tell us about it?
The Wheatfield. It's a story I've written for young persons, people, and adults alike. It's years ago when I was doing some research in Gettysburg, I came across a true story that happened during a part of the battle. The Battle of Gettysburg is kind of separated into all these different engagements, and they all have their own name and their own mythology that goes along with them. And the Wheatfield saw some of the fiercest fighting of the entire Civil War, let alone the Battle of Gettysburg. 8 hand-to-hand, bloody hand-to-hand combat over 2 days. Field was gained, lost, regained fully 8 times. Tough stuff. And the story that I found was about a Union lieutenant named James Jackson Perman from the Pennsylvania 140th, and he stopped to aid a wounded comrade and managed to get his comrade behind a boulder. The guy was severely wounded and did in fact die from his wounds, but during the time it took him to place the guy, he lost ground and the rebels were charging, and he was brought down with an ounce of lead through his leg, and he lay there for the next day and night, dehydrating and bleeding to death. And then indeed the next morning he was shot through his other leg when he tried to raise up a little bit. And as he lay there dying, he saw a Confederate skirmisher and called out, "I'm dying over here. Would you help me?" And the Confederate said, "If I come over there, your sharpshooter's going to think I'm trying to loot you and they'll kill me." And he said, "Just crawl over, man. Please, please." Anyway, the rebel crawled over, not only gave him water, but put him on his back and crawled off the field with him. And that struck me as such a strange, such a bizarre thing to do in the middle of a battle. I mean, is this my friend? Is this my enemy? What is this? And in some way it struck me as kind of a microcosm of the entire Civil War, in a way, brothers against brothers. Yeah. And I wanted to tell the story, and it struck me that the lesson or the moral or whatever of the story was such a story of such kindness and such humane treatment that's a story that can be told to all of us, mm-hmm. whether we're young or old. So the challenge was to find it in a way to tell it, because you're dealing with a bloody battle, that is kind of palatable and appropriate for young ears and eyes, because I've got a pair of wonderful illustrators on the book as well. So in any case, it's a story that I've played with over the years. First I do it as a dramatic piece, a solo piece that I do. an old man looking back. And then I did it again as an animated film, and then now I've released it. It's being released as this book. And so basically I've taken the story and the subject and I've milked it for everything, everything it's worth, I guess.
Why don't you tell us a little about the movie Gettysburg?
Gettysburg was a based film we made back in '92, I think. It was based on Michael Shara's Pulitzer Prize winning novel, The Killer Angels, and which I read when it came out in '76. And I remember when it came out, it's a wonderful novel to read. It reads good. And I remember reading and thinking, "Oh man, they're going to make this into a movie someday," and I got to play George Pickett. I got to play George Pickett. And then years later, I was playing Hamlet on Broadway at the Roundabout in New York, and my buddy Billy Campbell, great actor, was playing Laertes, and he told me. He said, "Oh, we got to be good today because there's this guy, Ron Maxwell, coming to see me because I'm up for a part in a movie he's doing of the Killer Angels." And I'm like, "They're doing Killer Angels? Oh, my God." Anyway, but I forgot about it during the course of actually trying to play the part that day. But then after the performance that day, a man came up to me in the lobby and he said to me, "Hi, I'm Ron Maxwell." And right away I twigged to who he was, and without thinking, I put out my hand and I said, "Hi, I'm George Pickett."
Oh, man, what a great story.
And he said, he kind of stepped back a little bit and he said, "Let's have breakfast tomorrow." And we met for breakfast at the Mayflower, and before it was over, he cast me as George Pickett. And that's how, so it's one of those things where, it was a dream come true for me to be that.
So Pickett came before Gettysburg, or which came first? Which movie?
Oh, Gods and Generals.
Gods and Generals.
Well, Gods and Generals came later. I played Stonewall Jackson in
right.
Gods and Generals. Now, the events of Gods and Generals take place in the 2 years prior to the Battle of Gettysburg,
right.
and it ends, of course, 2 months before the Battle of Gettysburg.
Right.
And when Maxwell asked me to play Jackson in that, I was kind of stunned because you can, as you can imagine, the Civil War community is a very intense. And I was Pickett to them, and so the idea that they were going to accept me as Jackson was a little bit, iffy. But he decided I was the guy for the part, and I wasn't going to say no because Jackson is a incredibly interesting part. In fact, it's a much more complex part than George Pickett is. Just the way they were. Pickett was Pickett had greatness thrust upon him, whereas
the charge itself, you filmed that at Gettysburg when you filmed it on location?
Actually, the Pickett's charge, where we had thousands and thousands, I don't know how many men we had that day, but we had close to 30,000 men that day, that was actually filmed on the field at Gettysburg, which is the first and only time that the Park Service has ever allowed that to happen. Yeah.
And it's flat, right? I mean, I know there's a little. What is it?
It's rolling. It's rolling, but basically the ground is the same as it was in 1863. It's rolling fields of farmland with fencing and a road that goes in. It's open ground, and what Pickett's charge, of course, was 15,000+ men marching across an open field under fire, and it was suicidal. It was absolutely suicidal. Yeah.
You rode extensively in that film. Did you learn how to ride for that film, or did you had you ridden prior?
Well, I grew up in Queens, so we didn't do it. So I wanted to play him on a bike. But I'd done some riding. The thing is, I've always had a very strong image of myself, a picture of myself as a rider. I knew how I wanted to look, and then when you get on the horse, you just want to make sure that you kind of can live up to it. And I learned. I worked with some great wranglers and riders, and over the years have done a fair amount of horse work, I guess. And so, I've gotten passable on a mount, I'd say.
Wasn't both those films, or weren't both those films, sort of like vanity pictures for Ted Turner?
In a way, I guess you could say that, but Killer Angels, I mean, which they called Gettysburg because they wanted to change the title because they thought people would think it was a biker movie.
Is that right?
It's true, yeah. Yeah. A vanity project, that movie was crying out to be made. Gods and Generals is a little more problematic for a number of reasons, which we don't need to go into. But the fact of the matter is, for the first 2 years of the war, the Confederacy was kind of running roughshod over the Army of the Potomac. And that didn't sit well. Also, the depiction of slavery. When you make the film of Gettysburg, the issue of slavery is kind of abstract because there were no black troops at Gettysburg. When you get into Gods and Generals, you get into a whole nother aspect. And I'm not sure it was dealt, well, I am sure it was not dealt with in the most sensible fashion in the film. In a way. Also, the film of Gods and Generals was covering 4 battles, and whereas Gettysburg, it covered 1 battle. And if you think about it, the Battle of Gettysburg itself was 3 days long, and the 4th of July was the 4th day, and then there was the day preceding the battle. 5 acts, like a Shakespearean play. And so what you've got there is the protagonist of the Battle of Gettysburg, the film, is the battle itself.
Wow.
Right?
Wasn't the movie almost that long?
I'll tell you, when I saw the cut of Gods and Generals, and I was watching the Battle of Fredericksburg, I did say to Ron Maxwell, I said, I think it's weird when the film battle actually goes on longer than the actual battle itself. If I see those dudes charging one more time.
So riding a horse.
How did we get onto this? Because of the wheat field. Anyway, the wheat field is my book, and it's coming out at the end of the month, and will be available. And so,
is it on Amazon?
It'll be. You got to go to this initial printing will be sold through the Gettysburg Foundation, through the bookstore at Gettysburg. They have an exclusive on it, so that's www.gettysburgfoundation.org, and you can order the book there. It'll be available about 10 days from now for order. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Mm-hmm. So, how did you start? What was your break in acting, and how did you segue into A Few Good, not A Few Good Men, Death of a Salesman?
Yeah. I started working in, while I was in college in the 60s, in the late 60s.
At Swarthmore?
At Swarthmore College, at a local theater. I wouldn't consider anything that happened there to be a break at all, but it was, I learned some stuff. And then I started working at the New York Shakespeare Festival for Joe Papp when that was the place to be. I wasn't a leading actor by any means there. There were Kevin Kline, and there were some terrific stage stars there at that point. Merrill was just getting started and everything. I was just happy to be on the team. Mm-hmm. But from that, I got cast as Václav Nijinsky in a play about the great ballet dancer Nijinsky, and that moved me forward. What I've found throughout my career is that every job kind of pushes you excuse me, a little bit forward. And then my break, and I'd been in the business for about 10 years, really learning to be an actor, because I wasn't conservatory trained. I was educated, I was relatively well read, but I hadn't gone to Juilliard or the Yale School of Drama.
Well, your degree was in English Lit.
Exactly. So I had a good grounding in Shakespeare, for example, but my grounding in Shakespeare was more from a literary point of view than it was from, say, an acting point of view. But I always wanted to be an actor, so I was always making the translation, for myself. So anyway, it was a great education.
So you knew at 20, 21 years old that you wanted to be an actor?
I knew at 5 years old I wanted to be an actor. Yeah, absolutely.
It was always in you.
It was a calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think acting, and I'm sure it's true. I'm sure it can be true for being a firefighter, perhaps even for a producer. That it's if you're called to do something, you're called to do it, and that's how I felt about acting. Don't mean you're going to be a great actor, and it doesn't even mean you're going to be a good actor, but you're going to be an actor, and so
It doesn't even mean you're going to be able to
to.
support yourself, which
Yeah.
it always gets me when to make an analogy with comedy. Somebody does comedy, or say you do Avatar, and well, you know, you're going to get a good payday for Avatar. And people say, "Look at this guy makes this amount of money for one movie." No, this guy makes this amount of movie because he's been doing it for 44 years. You know, like it's hand to mouth to build up the experience and the ability to be able to do that. you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Well, I remember you saying once at the first January 1st every year, your goal is just to make my nut. My goal is just to make my nut every year. My goal is just to make my nut. My goal is just to make my nut. And that's, you know, most people don't get to make their nut.
Yeah, I know. It's a rugged business, and I've been luckier than so many people in this business, and but I'm still trying to make my nut, and I find my nut keeps going up.
Yeah, you might call it luck, but I read a quote written about you, and it said, "This guy will gain or lose weight. He'll grow scraggly or voluminous beards. He'll build and keep muscles. He'll do whatever it takes."
Yeah.
And the more I read, you know, about you, you pretty much did whatever it takes. You know,
Kitchen sink. That's my school.
There's a picture of Stephen in Beyond Glory.
Yeah.
You know, you're drawn to heroes. You are drawn to heroes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how Beyond Glory came about and what it was about?
In the wake of Gods and Generals, which did not do well, I was kind of distraught. My phone was not ringing, and I thought to myself, that might have been my shot. But I realized you've got to take some responsibility for your own career. You can't just sit there and wait for the phone to ring. And so I was sniffing around for material. And, you know, I played in this basketball game in Mount Kisco, New York at the Boys and Girls Club for years. Every Sunday morning at 6:30 we'd meet, kept you sober Saturday night most of the time. But, and, you know, you played with these guys for years, 15, 20 years. And you didn't know their last name half the time. And you had no idea what they did for a living.
Chucka.
Everybody knew, the fire hydrant. Everybody knew I was the actor. Right. And I was the only one who's like, "Hey, you working?" And this is the dentist, and I'm saying, "Do I ask you if you're working? You know, I come here to play basketball, schmuck. Leave me alone." You know? But in any case, one morning I was lacing up, and I said to this guy, "Larry, what do you do?" I was just making comments. He said, "Well, I'm retired." I said, "What are you retired from?" He said, "Well, I was managing editor of Parade magazine." And I was like, "Really? Huh? I never would have pegged him for that. Well, what are you doing now you're retired?" "Well, I wrote a book." "What'd you write a book on?" It's about the Medal of Honor." "Really?" And that was interesting to me because I've always been interested in military history. And I said, "Oh, I'd love to read it." Next week, he brought me an uncorrected copy because it was still not going to come out for another month and a half or something. And I went home that day, and I remember I pulled it out of my gym bag. I was standing there sweating and stuff, and I started reading it standing up. Eventually, I sat down, but I read the book that afternoon. That night, I went up and I began noodling with it, you know, trying to turn it into something. And the next morning, I had taken this one piece of the book, this narrative from a 97-year-old sailor named John Finn, who received the Medal of Honor for actions at Kaneohe Bay, just down the road from Pearl Harbor on December 7th. He was head of ordnance, and he was, as he tells it, making love to his wife on Sunday morning when a plane flashed by the window and they heard machine gun. And he said, "Who the hell's firing machine guns around here? I'm chief of ordnance. Anybody who fired machine guns, I'm going to know about it." Anyway, he rushed out there, and he got a .30 caliber machine gun on a training stand, put it out on the tarmac, and for the next 2.5 hours fired at Japanese Zeros and brought one down with a 30
Wow.
cal. With a 30 cal. And then a year later, Nimitz give him the Medal of Honor. And I wrote that story, and the actual action itself is important, of course, but his life before and after, and to tell that in an 8-minute or a 10-minute bite in the first person. And the next morning I'd done something. I'd written this thing, taken this chapter, this wonderful piece of journalism that Larry Smith had put together through this interviews with living Medal of Honor recipients. And I asked my wife, she was in the kitchen, and I said, honey, I want to read you something. And we sat down at the dining room table, and I performed it. I read it, performed it really, because the voice was just coming out of me. And when I was done, she was just flooded with tears. And, Frank knows Tina, she's a hard nut. She's not an easy sell, that woman. But she was weeping, and I thought, there's something here. I know that. And so I reached an arrangement with Larry. I just began working on it, made an arrangement with Larry. We got sign-offs from these Living Medal of Honor recipients, and it ended up being a tour de force performance for a single actor, where I play 8 Medal of Honor recipients from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and it's 80 minutes without an intermission. So it's just it's designed to be a piece that shows everything I've got as an actor,
Well, it's certainly I watched Beyond Glory, and the diversity that you show in it is remarkable. I mean, it's 8. Is it 8 10-minute spots? Do you do 10 minutes on each 8?
I never timed them, but roughly it's 8 guys, and the show runs 80 minutes. So yes.
Well, one critic called it, which I thought was a great critique. They said, "As moving as taps at dusk." And I thought I said that's a great quote,
that's
because
a nice thing to hear.
Because it really was. I mean, I watched it, and I am a Vietnam vet.
And and I know you are, and Vietnam is well recognized in Beyond Glory for sure,
Yeah, but I mean, you were born during Korea and grew up during the turmoil of Nam,
Absolutely, yeah.
So I was drawn to the way, just like Frank was, the way you're drawn to heroes, It seems like you are anyway.
Well,
and I thought you might have a military background.
I think that it's an interesting thing, drawn to heroes. I'm drawn to heroes, but my conception of heroes has to do as much with flaws as it has to do with anything else. In the real classical conception of heroes, they create problems for themselves.
Yeah.
They are, a lot of times they're mavericks, and mavericks always create problems. I think by definition, a hero is something of a maverick. And also a lot of times they're guilty of, what they would call hubris, or some sort of overweening pride. They take too much upon themselves. And so not only their kind of qualities of courage or fortitude are paramount or accentuated, but also their qualities of pride, or things that are maybe not so positive. So maybe, I guess I've always been attracted to big themes anyway, and maybe that's it.
So do you think that most heroes have a Shakespearean tragic flaw? Like that?
I think without a flaw, you're maybe a leading man. I'm not sure you're a hero, though. If you think about it. I think we've come to, I don't see a whole lot of, and when people define anti-heroes, to me, that the difference between a hero and an anti-hero is, I'll take the anti-hero any time.
Sure.
And in a way, that's more consistent with what I think of a hero as in the first place.
I'm not a hero. I only play one in a movie.
Really?
I watched your TED Talk, and what drew me to your TED Talk and really blew me away, first of all, it was obvious that you were super well read, as I was listening to your TED Talk. And you had spoke about how difficult it is to support the troops and be against the war.
Yeah.
That's a huge dichotomy. And, of course, Vietnam
that's
really
where
brought that to the forefront.
That's where the dichotomy really arose, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you want to support the troops, but you're against the war, and you made a point in that you said, what makes a good society? And you said dissent. And I thought that really resonated with me specifically, because when listen, and I'm going to reiterate this, I was in the Air Force for 4 years during Vietnam. I was no hero by any stretch of the imagination. I was in the only air-conditioned building in Vietnam. Like I was a computer operator. I saw enough bodies going on C-130s going back. That left a huge effect on me for the rest of my life. I mean, the year I was there was still a defining year of my life. But I was no combat soldier. I still bow my head whenever I see a Marine or a ground pounder, because I know what those guys went through. I didn't experience it myself. But when I came back, I mean...
You were a dissenter.
Yeah. I came back, and when I was over there, I couldn't understand it. I said, well, what are all the protests about? What's going on? Why aren't they behind us here? I was born in Ireland, and when I was 18 years old, I was under the illusion that we were going to Vietnam to stop communism. And I said, well, my country needs me, and I love this country maybe only the way an immigrant can. I owed this country everything. So I really thought that I was going there to make a stand against communism, and of course, when I came back, when I started reading everything I could get my hands on about, like, what the hell was that all about? I started reading David Halberstam and The Best and the Brightest and, everything, the things they carried, as a matter of fact. They're making a movie now about Tim O'Brien's novel, which might be the greatest novel I ever read about Nam out of all of them.
Yeah.
It was really, really
Very
well
strong.
done. And they're making a movie about that now. But I went to school, Stephen, and I didn't go back to school. I went to school to begin with, to college at 58 years old, right? And I stopped drinking. After 9/11, I was always a heavy hitter, because I was Irish and I owned bars. And genetically, my old man was a drunk and killed himself. And it was just what I did. And I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm not going to make apologies for it. But after 9/11, it almost got biblical. It's like time to put childish things aside. And I decided I was going to get sober, and I went back to school. I went to the University of Florida, got a degree in journalism, started writing, started doing stand-up comedy. But I was in a history class. And the history guy, the professor was amazing. He was a great, great professor. And I said, this guy really, really knows his shit, Western civilization. I think that the title of the class was From Plato to NATO. On Western civilization. And
In
the guy,
16 weeks.
Yeah, no, exactly. In 16 weeks. Perfect. A perfect exclamation point at the end of it. But the guy never looked at a PowerPoint and just lectured. And I said, wait till this guy gets to Vietnam. I says, then I'll see what this guy knows. Because I was there, plus I've read everything I get my hands on. Well, this guy did Vietnam in 4 days, and he did everything I knew about Vietnam in 2 days, And then he made a point about how people of my generation were, civil rights activists. We were out in the streets to stop the war. We were out in the streets marching for civil rights. And I said, he said, well, Bill was there, I was 20 years older than the professor, And he says, Bill was there. And I said, well, look, granted we were activists. I said, but I got to tell you, when I came back from Vietnam, I says, I realized you had a uniform and short hair on. You weren't getting laid. It was that simple. All the kids were in the streets with the long hair and the bell bottoms. And I said, somebody said something about free love. I said, well, the price is right anyway. I'm going out in the streets. I said, that's why a lot of, people were out in the streets. I mean, I like to think that we were, we had this moral imperative to stop it, but I don't know. I don't know why I went off on that rage.
It was good. I enjoyed it.
So after Beyond Glory, James Cameron made it into a movie, correct?
Well, ultimately he did, but he executive produced it.
Right.
We made it into the film. But what happened was the thing Beyond Glory is very central to my life because doing Beyond Glory was hugely important to me because it was so personal. And what started out, I was just putting one foot in front of the other, and I started in 2003, and in 2007, I was bringing it to New York, to the Roundabout Theater, and that just blew my mind, what I had been able to achieve, I guess, doing it. So the week before it was going to open in New York, and this was a big deal to me because I'd been playing it everywhere, and I'd put my heart and soul and turned down lots of work for it, lost a manager over it because I wouldn't go out for pilot season or some such stuff, really committed myself to this piece.
Well, you starred in it, you wrote it, right? You started.
Yeah.
Did you direct it yourself too?
I directed it originally. When I brought it to New York, what happened was at some point I'd been playing it in Washington and on the road, and I got a call from the Goodman Theater, from Bob Falls in the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and he asked me to bring it there, and brought it there, and that's such a distinguished and historic theater. And when I was then invited to bring it to New York, I asked Bob if he would mind directing it, even though it was directed already. But my idea was, well, I'm not sure I want to be coming into New York with Stephen Lang in a play by Stephen Lang, directed by Stephen Lang. I thought, I don't know. A little, talk about a vanity project, But Bob did come and he said, sure, I'd like to do that. And I went out to Chicago to rehearse, and my idea had been, I don't really want to rehearse, Bob. I just want your name on the program. but Bob Falls had different ideas, and he started directing and changing, and it was great because at that point I'd probably performed it several hundred times at least, and so he just shook me out of all my complacency and really put his mark on it. But in any case, I'm about to open it in New York, and I get a call from my agent saying, we've had a call from James Cameron's office. He has a script. He wondered if you would read. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Be delighted to read it. And so, okay, you're going to have to sign papers and stuff, the non-disclosure stuff.
Yeah.
And it will be delivered by, armed guards and stuff to you.
Not to stop you, but you had this was for Avatar, obviously, and you had read for Cameron like 8 years prior, and he remembered you?
Well, what happened was, the reason that he wanted me to read Avatar was his casting director, Margie Simpkin, God bless her, was thumbing through the New York Times and saw the ad for Beyond Glory, which is me in a T-shirt, making that one like that. And she went, hey, Jim, do you know, to Cameron, she says, Jim, you know Stephen Lang? And he said, oh, yeah, he's a good actor. He read for me for Aliens. He almost got the part.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's true. We've talked about it since then. Why? And she showed him the photo, the ad, and they both said Quaritch. And that's why that's why they sent me the script. And so then when I read it, I was like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. This is, and so we had a conversation on the phone, and he said, I know your opening or in your show, and I'd come in, but to be honest, I don't have a day off coming until next Thanksgiving. I sure would like to continue this conversation in person. And so what we did was, I was playing 8 a week, and my last show of the week was Sunday matinee. So I flew out to L.A. Sunday night after the show, the week before opening Beyond Glory. And Monday, they brought me up to his place. We messed around, with cameras and reading and improvising for about 2 hours. And then they took me back to the airport. And by the time I got to the airport, I'd been given the role. And it was amazing, and that was how I got Avatar, and the rest is, I've been with Avatar now since that was in 2007.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2000.
And you're filming the sequels. Is it in Auckland, New Zealand? Where you?
No, well, there's a little work in Auckland, but mostly in Wellington. That's where our home base is. That's the south tip of the North Island. Yeah, we film there, and we also film in Manhattan Beach. Here.
You play a lot of pricks in your career, don't you?
Oh, thank you very much.
But you do it really well, Stephen. I mean, I can't advocate enough that Beyond Glory is something you guys should see. It's remarkable.
There's Jim Cameron.
Yeah. He's about to say, what the hell are you doing, Slang? For God's sake.
But I got it when you were in Manhunter. And
hang on. Let's not get off Avatar yet, because you were on it in 2007, and you're going to be on it until 2027. It appears.
At least, I would say. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But we have huge breaks in between. It's sort of a lifelong commitment, and we've finished Avatar 2. The sequel is I've done with my acting in there, and I've done an awful lot on Avatar 3. I think I have a bit left there. Avatar 4, we've barely scratched, and Avatar 5, not at all. So we have a long way to go. It's the motivation for me going to the gym, So
I mean, you are really in terrific shape.
Well, I don't want to let anybody down, least of all myself. I mean, I'm good to have stunt guys do some stuff, but whatever I can do. I want to do. What does concern me, though, is walking down the red carpet or the blue carpet in Avatar's case and looking at my wife and saying, "Hey, honey, why are we here?"
Yeah.
So are you talking about, I mean, with all the sequels, it's a 2-decade commitment? Or
Yeah, at least. Well, I think it's a lifetime commitment, actually, because when I'm done with the films, I'll just go to shows and sign cards for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, at least you
No,
don't have-
it becomes part of your life when you are, the story. It's like being with Murphy Brown or something. That sure, the show is over, but it's never
never over.
It's never over. It's never over.
Like Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth is never over too. I mean, that's you. It's a little bit different, that one, because we did that just so quickly and everything, but it still resounds in our consciousness, our memories, and everything.
How long did it take you guys to shoot Babe Ruth?
I think we shot Babe Ruth in 21 days.
Something like
Wow.
that. I have no memory because to me it's all one big day with naps, you know.
And nose changes.
And we lined the
We lined the nose.
noses.
Well, we lined the noses up on a pegboard, and then what do we do with them?
We lined the noses up on a peg every day because they'd peel it off, the prosthetic nose, and they'd put it up like a butterfly on a corkboard. And they lined up we had like 24, 25 of these noses all lined up. That's a fake nose on me. That's a good Babe Ruth nose.
It is.
And that's a real one on me.
And it beats the shit out of William Bendix and John Goodman's for Babe Ruth too. Let me tell you that. I watched it. It was excellent.
And we and then when it wrapped, I didn't see them anymore. They were gone. But then several years later, I was doing a picture, and the makeup man, a guy named Mike Smith, came and said, "I got something for you." And I said, "What?" And he brought out this board, this big cork board of noses, which he presented to me. Well, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with them, but as it happened, it was the centennial of Babe's birthday, and Frank and I got some attention from the Babe Ruth Commission or whatever it was, and we ended up giving a bunch of memorabilia to the museum down on Emory Street, his birthplace.
Babe Ruth Museum.
The Babe Ruth Museum. And I'm told, I haven't been down there in a while.
Emory Street, and where is that?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Okay.
He was the boy from Baltimore,
Right.
you know.
Baltimore.
Yeah. So I'm told that the noses are a great favorite among all the when they're bringing the school kids and everything. I want to see the noses. You know?
It's the first thing you see when you walk into the museum. Is Babe Ruth's noses from our movie.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one other thing about Babe Ruth. There was a lot to talk about on that. There was a lot I really love about it. I mean, I'm here today because Frank and I became good pals on Babe Ruth. But also my hitting instructor on Babe Ruth was the great Rod Carew, who truly is the Yoda of hitting, as far as I'm concerned. And I learned as much as he could teach me as I was fit to learn about hitting from Rodney. But I learned a lot about a lot of other stuff too, just from being around him.
Now, you weren't a natural left-hander.
There they are at the premiere of Babe Ruth at the Directors Guild, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't a natural left-hander. You were
No,
righty.
but I think actually I might actually have been a natural lefty and just was made a righty immediately. I'll tell you now, I can still hit from the left side. I can't hit worth a damn from the right side anymore. But he did. He turned me around. We studied Ruth's swing. We did the best. We gave it a shot. We did the best shot we could, you know.
There you are with Miller Huggins, which
Bruce
was played
Weitz.
by Bruce Weitz.
Great, yeah.
And I believe we have a card, a baseball card of you and Rod together also. Derek will look for it in a second.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah.
No, that's a
That's him presenting me with the Wheaties box.
was taken at Rod's house.
Yeah.
And that's me and Billy O'Connor.
Who was it that said that when they came on the field that there was Babe Ruth? I saw him. I mean,
Kramer.
Bob Kramer, who is a biographer of Ruth, and I'll tell you what gave me great pleasure was that the Ruth family, Julia, his daughter, and everything, she said, "That's Daddy."
Wow.
Yeah. So when you please the family, that's
amazing.
that's where it's at. But that was a tough shoot for me because I'm not Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
I did everything I could to be Babe Ruth, and I think during the time I was there. I was where I had to be. But man, I was always feeling inadequate to the task.
Yeah, well, Julia Ruth said, "There's Daddy," and Jim Murray, the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer for the L.A. Times, said, "There's Babe Ruth." So I think you did it.
I think you must have
Pretty
done a
good
hell of a
job.
job. I can tell you,
I'll
I
take
saw it.
that.
I thought it was great.
Thank you.
But the memory of it must be awful difficult for an actor, and I have no idea. I'm just throwing this out there to play somebody who everybody remembers, you know, because everybody. I mean, it's like when I read a novel and I see a novel made into a film. Of course, it's not the same novel I read because I visualize the characters
Sure.
totally different.
Sure.
But to play somebody who's still fresh, even after all these years, Babe Ruth is the Babe. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it must be awful difficult.
Well, that one was a tough role, but you know the best. I remember first time we did makeup, we did a full makeup, and this was the Westmores. This was Mike Westmore, and you know the Westmores are synonymous with Hollywood makeup, and we did the full Monty. The first time we did a test makeup, and the makeup itself probably took between 4 and 6 hours. I can't remember. And I remember after I was done and we got him dressed up in a camel's tooth coat and a hat and everything like that. And I walked into a production meeting with a cigar in my mouth, and there was sort of this stunned silence from everybody because it was sort of like Babe Ruth, except maybe 2 inches shorter, had walked in the room. Right? But the problem was, number one, we ain't got 4 hours a day to do makeup, right? And the other problem was it was too real. It was too on the money. I think I couldn't see myself, but I think I might have looked a bit like a bobblehead doll. You know,
That's really interesting.
a little. I
on
looked
the
like
money.
Hyper Babe or something.
Yeah.
So we did a thing where we did the nose, we did a wig. As I got older, we did a little jowl piece, and we padded. We did graded pads to put on the weight, and you know, it worked tolerable well.
It worked tolerable well.
Sorry to interrupt, but which photo are you looking
The
for?
baseball card, the Topps baseball card that I sent you in the mail.
Here's some here. Well, I
So
need the photo.
in 21 days, you don't do the full makeup anymore because you thought from the first day out it was just an
It's not that
overkill.
important.
Yeah.
Just keep that up.
You guys thought it was an overkill.
Yeah,
It
we
was more-
did. You had to get it down just to get the movie done. We had to get the makeup down, and probably we got it down to around 90 minutes or something like that.
Yes.
It just meant I was in at 4:30 in the mornings to be ready to shoot at whatever it was.
And you act with your face as much as
Right.
any actor I've ever seen. You act with your face, and you couldn't even move your face with all of that makeup.
That's true too. I'd forgotten about that. You know,
But what did the producer say when he wanted you on set?
this one I still quote. This one I'd be between shots with, putting ice on my back or something, and I'd hear this voice go, "Okay, wheel in the meat."
Eloquent, Frank. Just
That
eloquent.
meant me. That was Frank, and that meant me. Wheel in the meat. So I've used that. I've used that ever since. I would say wheel in the meat. You know, yeah. So yeah, but that was a great man. I'll tell you what. I worked harder on that damn thing. You want to hear a story about it?
Yeah,
Too? This is true.
that's why
This
you're
is true
here.
story. The true story was when they called me to do the movie. I was actually on a fast, which is ironic, right? I was on a fast at a place called the Kripalu Institute in the Berkshires, and when they asked me to play it, it blew my mind. I mean, I'm a New York Yankee. You know, I grew up. I'm going to play Babe Ruth. I can't play Babe Ruth. How the hell am I going to play Babe Ruth? And I was walking through the woods on a solitary walk as I'm fasting at this kind of ashram place, and I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to play this part? And I stopped, and I looked down. I was in the middle of the woods. I looked down, and there was something in the dirt. And I went down, and it obviously had been trod on and embedded there, right? And I dug it out. And what it was the very bottom, the bottom 4 inches of a baseball bat. And I put it in my right. I put my right hand on it, and there was nothing up here. I just went like that, and I said, "It's all about the swing. It's all about the swing. If I can get the swing, I can play Babe Ruth." And it's true, because all you need is a window in. It doesn't matter what the window is. You know what I mean? It really, it necessarily. Some are probably more useful than others. But once I determined that it was all about the swing, I knew at least I had a place to start, a place to go from. And that's a true thing. And that I have that
But
piece
that's
of
almost
bat.
like fate, isn't it? That was there?
It's fake.
Yeah.
And I have it, and it's one of the things that this little piece of wood, it was old piece of a bat. This piece of wood means nothing to nobody but me.
But you.
So you know what? When I go, put this in the box with me, or if you're gonna cremate me, cremate this alongside me, because this one's mine.
No
you know?
coincidence.
And as fate would have it, you were living in North Castle at that time, which was right by my parents' house, and right by the Gate of Heaven Cemetery. And you went to visit Babe's grave.
Many times.
Babe's buried there.
Yeah, we went there many times. And the kids were small then, or smaller, and we'd go there. We'd bring a couple of hot dogs or some popcorn, lay them as offerings, and sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and ask for his blessing.
For the listeners or readers, watchers out there, Valhalla, New York is the Gate of Heaven, New York, Gate of Heaven, and that's where Babe is there.
And that's where I went to high school in my hometown.
Yeah. Well, there's like I said, there's no coincidences. You find a bat, and that was your window into the part, and that's interesting because I'm not an actor, and I'm sure 99.9% of people watching out there are not actors. But you just needed that grip, that those fingers on the ledge to get into the part, and that was the window.
As you say, it was fate, and believe me, there were. I don't get too metaphysical about things, but there were many, many times where I told myself or felt that Babe was right on my shoulder. Now I'm going, go on, get it, kid. You can do it.
And to this day, we greet each other with, "Hey, kid, how you doing?
Hey, kid,
how you doing?"
Did Rod study Babe's swing?
Yeah,
we
did.
To get you to develop that swing?
Absolutely.
I mean, he got off of his swing entirely and got into Babe's. Is that
We watched it. We watched film of Babe, and I go down to his school in Anaheim, and he'd close it down. It would be just me and him and the kid operating the pitching machine, and take BP, and he'd tutor me, he'd turn me around. One day I started hitting the ball pretty good from the left side. I was feeling kind of, I was feeling hitterish, as Babe would say.
We're talking Rod Carew.
We're talking Rod Carew. I'm feeling kind of hitterish, and Rod just looks at me and says, "Well, I guess it's time to meet Mr. Curveball." And that was the last pitch I touched that day.
What a line! That's just a great line.
True.
That's just a great line.
I guess it's time to meet Mr. Curveball.
But he didn't realize that in the movie we were going to throw you anything you could hit. So Mr. Curveball,
don't tell him that.
Mr. Curveball was not going to get near the park.
Yeah.
That's just a great line. That's just a great line. I'll remember on that one for a long time. Yeah. You got a little too chesty. There was a new marshal in town, and he decided that the marshal was going to see a curveball.
Yeah. Usually, I've always maintained ever since my first meeting with Rod, a kind of a great humility, But that time I got a little out of hand, I think.
So why don't you tell us about Death of a Salesman?
That was that. You asked me before, what's the break in your career? I would have to say that Salesman was the break, because I was working out in Snowmass, Colorado, doing Tennessee Williams Glass Menagerie out there, and we read in this new paper, USA Today, that Dustin Hoffman was going to do Death of a Salesman in New York. And Tina, my wife, I had done Salesman up in Syracuse, and in a very good production, a regional theater production of Death of a Salesman. And she said, "Oh, if they could only see you for that, you would be so, because you were so good in that." And I said, "Yeah, well, by the time we get back to New York, it's going to be cast, and I don't have an agent anyway." And
did you play Hap in the one up there?
No,
too?
I played Biff.
You played Biff.
So what happened was, by the time I got back to New York, well, in fact, they had not cast the role, and a guy and they weren't going to see me for it, but there was an agent wanted to represent me from ICM, and I said, well, I want a reading for Death of a Salesman. If you get me a reading for Death of a Salesman, you can be my agent. And he called me back 5 minutes later and said, you read tomorrow. Because, I mean, they represented Arthur Miller. It's no, you know. I went in to the Booth Theater, on Schubert Alley, and not only am I reading for the part, I'm reading with Dustin Hoffman. And I got up there and we did a scene, and it went real good. And he said, Dustin said, take a walk with me, kid. And so I did, and we walked around Schubert Alley to 44th Street, around 8th Avenue, and then to 45th Street, and came around. And they said the next day, they said, can you come back tomorrow? And I said, I'll clear my schedule. So I go back, and I'll tell you why you have to come back tomorrow, because there's 4 of us who have to agree on everything in this production. There's Dustin, there's the producer, Bob Whitehead, there's the director, Michael Rudman, and then there's the playwright, Arthur Miller. And Arthur is not here today, but he could be here tomorrow. He'll be here tomorrow. So the next day I went in, and I was nervous, and then, obviously, and we did the scene again, and Dustin said, well, you don't have a thing to worry about, kid. And everybody looked at Arthur. And Arthur Miller was standing in the aisle, and he was wearing he looked like a lumberjack, Arthur. He was wearing kind of boots and corduroy pants and a checkered shirt and suspenders. And he was sort of rocking back on his heels. And everybody's looking for his response, and he says, gee, that's a great scene. And I thought, he just complimented his own writing. I think that's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
How intimidating.
And so and that was on a Friday, and then of course the weekend was like a long weekend, and then I got a call that I was going to get a call and get offered the part. And the thing is, what you got to understand is everybody wanted to play Biff or Happy, and Dustin, they read everybody for this role. So, as you say, I had played Biff. And when I went in, I was intending to read for Biff. I said, I'm here to read for Biff. And the director said, actually, there's an offer out for Biff, but you look a lot like Happy. And I said, I'm here to read for Happy. So I've always maintained that, and I was quite successful in the part. So I've always maintained basically the right way to play Happy is just pretend you're playing Biff. You know? But anyway, it was a great experience working with Dustin and
did you become friends with Arthur Miller?
I did. Yeah.
That's amazing. To
I
me.
did his last play as well. His final play, finishing the picture. Yeah.
Did he have anything to do with you writing your own play with Beyond Bravery? I mean,
no.
Glory.
Beyond Glory. I'm sorry.
No, I wouldn't say that, because I think if I start comparing myself to Arthur,
oh
Miller,
yeah, I mean that's.
I wouldn't write, because Arthur, and there are many great playwrights, but for my money, no playwright has ever. Death of a Salesman just stands unrivaled to me. It's such a remarkable play.
Now, you can correct my memory if I'm wrong, but didn't you tell me that you went sailing or something with Arthur Miller one day, and he was such an optimist that he did the New York Times crossword puzzle in pen?
That's Bob Altman.
Okay.
That was Robert Altman. That was a trick. You want to hear that one?
Sure.
Oh, God. I was doing the thing. Robert Altman, who I loved, adored,
Robert Altman, now he wrote
Bob
the book,
Altman.
The Kid Stays in the Movie, right?
No. That's Bob Evans. No, Bob Altman made Nashville, McCabe and Mrs. Miller,
Thank
The
you.
Player, a great movies. He's one of the great American filmmakers.
Right. And
And I was fortunate to work with him. And anyway, got to be pals, and we were up in Vancouver, and he says, we're going out on a boat on Sunday. You're coming, right? And I said, sure, I'm coming. So and Bob was a total pothead, love it. And so I meet them in the lobby, him and his wife Catherine, who and they've got their bag filled with stuff, of course. And we were meeting at 11, and I'd been up since like 7 and read the paper, and I had the Sunday Times, and I did the Times crossword puzzle, the Sunday puzzle, So I'd done that. I had my coffee, and then I went down to meet him. We get on the boat. So Bob, who's smoking a joint, and I see him in the cab and he's arranging his stuff for the day, the cookies and the newspaper. He takes out the newspaper, all kinds of stuff. And I said to him, Bob, do you do the puzzle? He said, No, I don't bother with that. That damn puzzle's too damn hard. No, I don't bother with it. I said, do you mind if I take a crack at it? He said, Sure, take it. It's hard, I said, well, I don't know. Let me see. So I take the puzzle, and Bob is going about his stoner business there. And I sit down, and I just begin filling it in as fast as I can. So, I get the puzzle. Probably takes me 7 minutes to fill in the entire puzzle, something like that. Yeah. And then and I go, wow, there you go. And Bob goes, Jesus Christ! Jesus, I didn't know you were a fucking genius.
That's great. That's great.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
That was fun.
That's a great story.
He was a wonderful cat. He was the best.
You also did A Few Good Men on Broadway.
I did. I was the original Colonel Jessup.
And how did that come down? You were replaced in a movie by Jack Nicholson.
They made a movie of it? Those bastards.
But you were a great Broadway star. But
look, what are you gonna do? It's like they replaced Zero in Fiddler. They replaced Julie Andrews in all this. And I'm so like Julie Andrews, But it kind of goes with the territory. People want to make a director, for one thing, wants to put their own mark on it. And I think a lot of times it probably makes sense. On the other hand, I would have loved to have done it. And to this day, I have not seen the film.
Really?
It's worth
Yeah.
it. Well, it's too personal
I'm like
to
you.
me.
I'm
It's
like
not resentment, not
Just
anything
personal.
like that.
With me, it's
just-
resentment.
it's-
with me, it's outright resentment.
Yeah, no, I'd say it's more.
that kiddie
I'd
thing,
say it's
Frank.
more hatred from me.
Yeah.
Well, I can't go back to the 9/11 memorial. To this day, I can't go down there. I won't go.
I wouldn't compare my.
No, but still,
my
no.
thing
I
with
mean,
that.
I can get where you're coming from. Is that what I wanted to ask you? Is I see you played Increase Mather on Salem.
Salem,
And that again, my favorite Arthur Miller play is The Crucible.
Sure, it's a great play. Yeah.
Oh, I love The Crucible. I
Yeah.
think it's a great play. I mean, as an actor, I would imagine. I'm not an actor, so I would imagine Death of a Salesman would be the paramount one. But I love The Crucible, and I was wondering if that influenced you at all, Arthur Miller's Crucible, when you did Salem.
Not particularly. That I was aware of it, of course, but and I love The Crucible. It's a terrific play. But Increase Mather was, the series Salem. It was a lovely series, I thought, very, very well done. But it kind of was all about the witchery and the sex. It was a pot boiler. And Increase Mather was very definitely a knife-wielding, Puritan villain who really had a hard-on for for the female lead. Yeah. So, it was a bit of a pot boiler, It wasn't all that grounded in history, is what I'm saying. But it was a lot of fun.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about Don't Breathe? Because Don't Breathe was made for a minimal amount of money. What was it made for? $5 million?
No, it was made for $9.9 million, and that was important for, I don't understand why, but from a distribution point of view, they needed to keep it under $10 million. Made it in about 5 years ago, and it was a sleeper.
And where did you make it?
We shot it in Budapest. It takes place in Detroit, so of course. Where else?
And you want to
where
hold
else
it
would
under
you
10
shoot
million,
it?
so you go to Budapest.
They went to Detroit. And they said, no. We shot a week of exteriors in Detroit, but they built it. And in the movie, which concerns 3 housebreakers coming into a blind man's house, so pretty much the entire
blind Vietnam vet, right?
A vet, yeah, Iraq War.
Iraq War.
So it takes place within the house, so it really makes sense to build it on a soundstage, and that's what they did. And so Budapest was a good place to do it because they could do it for $9.9 million, whereas if you do it, Warner Brothers, it's a whole nother thing. So, and the film did very, very well.
Oh, it was great. Again.
It did like worldwide, like $185 million. So, of course,
Would you describe
thrilled.
yourself in that part as a prick?
No,
you were defending your house, but you got to extremes.
He's, you know, it's what makes that film so interesting is the turnaround, because the guy, yeah, he's always scary because that's the way he looks. But he's the victim here. I mean, they're breaking into his house. And so, and hopefully, and the idea, and I think we did it because I think it's one of the reasons the film did well. This guy earns, as spooky as he may be, he earns your sympathy.
True.
And then what happens over halfway through the film, there's a twist, and you learn something about the guy that's extremely dark, and you go, whoa. But the interesting thing is, at that point, you've already established feelings for the guy, and they just don't go away. It's like finding out that favorite Uncle Fred of yours is actually a pederast, you know? You still love him, but, you know, you don't really want to be around him anymore, something like that. And the blind man is not a pederast, by the way. But I'm just saying that finding out something about someone who you care about that is really unsavory, it doesn't mean you don't care about him anymore. And I think that was where the success of the film partly came from. And so we just finished the sequel, which we shot in Belgrade, Serbia, which, of course, is where you would shoot.
Detroit.
You know.
And I'm going to guess it cost a little bit more than $9.9 million.
This one does cost more because it ranges outside. And, of course, it was one of the reasons it took a while to get this film going was because the first one was successful. And so people they start circling. The buzzard starts circling, above the line and everything. But ultimately, we came up with a terrific story. I shouldn't say I didn't write this story. Rodo Sagayas and Fede Alvarez, the writers, came up with a terrific story, and we went off and we made it, and we made it during the pandemic. I mean, I just got back from it about less than a month ago, and we had been scheduled to shoot April and May. Of course, that didn't happen, but in June we got the green light to go ahead, and they put all the COVID protocols in place, and we had a really fine shoot. The shoot went really, really well, and so the film is being edited now. It will be released Friday the 13th of August, 2021. So.
And hopefully it'll be in the theaters instead of streaming.
I sure hope so, because when you're dealing with it is a genre picture. I mean, it's a thriller, but it's got horror element to it as well. Those are films that really play best with an audience because you want everybody screaming. One person screams, everybody starts screaming. That's a real shared movie experience. People get each other all the time.
I could totally.
So I hope we're back in the movie theaters.
I totally get that. When I saw Silence of the Lambs, I was holding on to my seat in the movie theater, like squirming,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads me into Manhunter, because I thought Manhunter was really, really a good movie, and I don't think it was a big success at first, right? It's more of a cult film now. I mean, I've seen it about 3 times.
It's a filmmaker's film for sure. People who work in our business always admire that film. It's beautifully made film. If it wasn't a huge, I don't think it was a breakout hit in any way, but it certainly was distinguished, I think. And but it's a cold film. It's a cold movie in a way.
I don't get that. What do you mean cold?
It doesn't. It's not about it's so disturbing that there's not a lot of room for love in the movie. It seems to me.
No.
And there are a lot of people who have problems even in that movie. I mean, that's Billy Peterson in that photo with me, who plays the lead, Will Graham. He's a troubled guy. He's got all kinds of trouble in his head. So it's a disturbing film.
In real life?
What?
No, in the movie, you mean?
In the movie.
His character, not Billy Peterson.
No,
himself.
Billy's great.
Billy the actor.
Billy's a little messed up, too.
Well, I got to tell you, again, I was delighted to see you get set fire to in that movie.
Yeah, that
you sucked me right in. I said, this guy Loud's got to go.
Michael enjoyed. Michael, man, he likes setting me on fire and crap like that.
And it's interesting. The movie is based on Thomas Harris's book, The Red Dragon,
Right.
and you couldn't call it The Red Dragon because Bruce Lee had so many dragon movies out at the time.
I think I think he could have called it that, but I think it's the same thing as the Killer Angels problem. It's not, we're not making a biker movie. In this case, we're not making a kung fu movie. And so he went for Manhunter. And I remember talking to Michael Mann about it. He kept running titles by me, and I would be like, how about Red Dragon?
I got an idea.
I like Red Dragon, Mike. Yeah, he said, no, we're not going to call it that. No, we're going to call it something else. And we did, and it's one of those films that I think has gained prestige over the years.
Without a doubt. I think it's a cult film now. I mean,
and also, it's the introduction of Hannibal Lecter is in that movie. That's the first Hannibal Lecter, played by the brilliant Brian Cox.
And Brian Cox was great in that too.
Absolutely. And it's of course he's not the prime villain in that film, so it's very much a supporting role, but it's Churse, as my mother would say.
We've often talked about relationships, how important relationships are in this business, how my career is based on relationships. It sounds like a lot of your career is based on relationships too, because you had met Michael Mann on Crime Story.
Right. I had actually met him before that. I was doing a play and so could not do a Miami Vice that I was asked to do. But then he did ask me to do, the first thing I did for him was Manhunter. And while I was doing Manhunter, he asked me to do Band of the Hand, which he was producing and Paul Michael Glaser was directing. And then during that, he said, I'm doing this series and I want you to be a part of it. And
so all of those were a result of your relationship with him.
I don't
Crime
know that
Story.
I mean, my relationship started with him in, I remember auditioning for Michael and then not being able to do the part because I couldn't get out of a show commitment to go to Miami. And he that's the kind of thing that would never sit well with Michael. He didn't blame me, but he's like, well, I'm going to get that guy in something, damn it. And so he put me in Manhunter. And then from there, he kept going. And then we took a break from each other for various reasons for a number of years. But then when he called me for Public Enemies, I was so happy to be back with him because I have great respect for him.
I've always felt that nobody does music better in movies than Michael Mann.
Yeah.
I think the first time I became aware of Michael Mann was, I think it was Theft.
Thief. Jimmy Caan.
That movie was incredible to me.
Yeah. That's the character, the thief, and that played by Jimmy Caan. We had a guy in Crime Story, John Santucci, and Thief is based on John Santucci, and Michael turned him into an actor playing a thief. And John was a thief. You couldn't leave anything around. John would say, God rest his soul. I love John. He was a great guy. But I wouldn't leave my wallet around, but John was a good guy. And so Michael he loved always getting his share of actors and his share of the real deal.
Like Farina.
Farina is the perfect example because he was both.
We're talking Dennis Farina.
Yeah.
But
he was in that picture before.
Half the supporting
picture before
guys, every time there was a judge in Crime Story, it would be a former cop, former Chicago cop. So it was a lot of that was a tumultuous time. That show.
You think?
That show was when you went to work, there was so much testosterone on that set.
Right.
You just went to work, you kind of rolled your sleeves up and doubled your fists because there could be a fist fight at any time.
Wow.
On that show. Yeah. But we all rallied to each other whenever there were threats from the outside.
Well, I tell you, on that testosterone note, I'm going to segue to Tombstone, only because you talked about the respect you had for Michael, and when I was reading the respect you had for Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think he's like one of the really knows film, I think is what you said.
Yeah, he does. Well, he's been doing it a long time. He was, that film was in trouble when we were shooting it because the guy who wrote it, with all, rest his soul, Kevin Jarre, was hired to direct it. And although he'd written a brilliant film, he was clueless as a director. And we were in trouble, and they shut us down. And Kurt went to Hollywood. He flew to L.A. He went to Hollywood Pictures, and he said, "Don't shut us down. Let us make this movie. We'll get a director, and I'll and so we did. We got George Cosmatos, he knows. You know, I always say about George, no, he can swing a lens with the best of the guys, but he didn't know nothing about cowboys. But we did. You know, Kurt did, Sam did, Val Kilmer did, I did, Billy Paxton did. We all knew what we were doing, and so we kind of and Kurt gets sometimes is given credit for directing the film. That's not true. I think it's unfair to George Cosmatos to say that, but certainly Kurt weighed in on everything that was done, and he's also a hell of a lot of fun. He's just a gregarious guy. I mean, I mentioned testosterone on Crime Story. There was a
Yeah, that's what I was
if you want testosterone, you come to this set, because there were so many characters, so many strong actors wanting to elbow their way into a close-up.
In front of the
You
lens.
know what I mean?
Try to get in front of the lens.
Yeah. So and I was able to carve out as Ike a very special niche, because I figured, look, I'm not going to outgun Doc. I'm not going to out macho Sam Elliott or Kurt in this thing. I'll tell you what I can do. I can out coward any of these bastards. Is what I can do, and I can turn that into an asset. You know what I mean? And that's
You
what
could
I try
probably
to do.
outdrink them also.
That's another thing I was going to ask you about Cosmatos. He had said that you did quite a bit of method acting in that. You did quite a bit of tequila.
A lot. I drank my way through that film. I mean, I was sober sometimes, but I was drunk. Never fell off my horse or nothing like that. And
You didn't do a Lee Marvin.
But I didn't do a Lee Marvin. No, I didn't do a Kid Shalene. But but right from there, I went up to Glenwood Springs, Colorado, to do another picture called Tall Tale. And when I got there, I got struck down by a galaxy of kidney stones, which were brought on by dehydration, because it occurred to me that I hadn't had a drink of water in 4 months.
In the desert.
I'd been living on tequila, basically, and so I had these terrible kidney stones. And then it further struck me, this is almost amusing, because Glenwood Springs, Colorado is the town where Doc Holliday died and is buried.
Wow.
Is this Doc's revenge on the Clantons, these kidney stones?
Wow.
But I managed to pass them and
Oh,
emerge
that's painful.
to tell the
I heard
tale.
it's terrible.
Well,
to do that.
you were doing, as we did with Babe Ruth, they were doing another feature film with a much bigger budget concurrently, which John Goodman starred in. Tombstone was also doing concurrently a film with Kevin Costner.
Correct, yeah.
How was that?
It was weird, because Costner, of course, is terrific and was the man of the moment with Dances with Wolves, and the smart money was on Costner, and he had some great people in that cast, including Gene Hackman, and he had Dennis Quaid doing Doc Holliday, which was good. Dennis was very good in his way. He was every bit as good as Val was in ours, and it's even possible that his Doc Holliday was more historically accurate than Val's was, but Val's was a lot more fun, put it that way. But in any case, the smart money was on that film. But in the end, all due respect, he made a boring film.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
It's a boring
Tombstone is
film.
everybody's favorite Western.
And Babe Ruth was a boring movie. Their Babe Ruth
Yeah.
was a boring movie.
Yeah.
And we did, we had about $3 million and they had about $30 million. And I would guess the disparity was pretty much the same in your two movies.
Probably was, because I know I was working for hay and oats on
And
that.
tequila.
Tequila.
But Tombstone is just
because
about everybody's favorite Western. I mean, everybody loves Tombstone.
It's that one. That's amazing to me, and I always say I shouldn't say it, but it's like you should have seen what's on the cutting room floor of that film.
Wow.
Because when I read that script, and every guy who's in that movie who's still alive will say the same thing. When they read that movie, it was like reading the script for The Godfather.
Yep.
That's how great that script was. But in the end, what we made is a really good odor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the story that was told was so had so many angles, was so serpentine, so many characters in and out, so much character stuff in there that that film could have been 3 hours long.
I mean, some of the
easily.
lines are just classic.
Well,
I'm your Huckleberry. That's
I'll be
like
a Huckleberry. Yeah, that's Kevin. That was Jar writing. That's the writing of Kevin Jar. He wrote brilliantly.
I actually heard when I was reading that was Bob Dylan's favorite Western, and he had showed up on the set with Val Kilmer.
I didn't see him there.
Yeah,
but he might.
Dylan-
but
Dylan
then again,
supposedly- You were drinking
I was
tequila.
drunk.
A small fault in a good man. A small fault.
Let me ask you, Stephen. This will get it back to a segue into your family, but look at that picture. I see your son Noah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's almost a spitting image of Noah.
Yeah, Noah we look a lot alike sometimes. He, handsome devil he is. and Danny too, the Duke also looks like me a little bit, but Noah really.
Why don't you tell us a little about what your family's doing?
Well, both of my boys, Danny and Noah, are in the business. Duke is a grip and doing very, very well. Loves what he does. He's the kind of guy who wants a tool belt on at all times.
He sort of got into business. How?
Send it to me.
Oh no! Tell me that. He got in the business. He got in the business as he was looking. He didn't want any part of the business.
Right.
I always said you were born for this business. He didn't want any part of the business until he did want part of the business, and I didn't know what to do with him. So he had it. He was a licensed EMT, right? And so I got him on an independent as a medic. And he did great, but of course it was an indie down in Kentucky. He started gripping on the film also. So then we when he's done, it's like I'm in the movie business now.
Wow.
And he drives out to California, and so I call Frank and I say, I'm sending my boy over. If you got something, great. If you don't, everything. So Danny goes over to Frank. And I get a call from Frank, and he says, this is what Pace says to me. He says, well, Danny was an hour late. He was wearing cargo shorts, and he didn't have a resume. He got the job.
That's Frank.
Anyway, but he did. He appreciates it. He'll never forget he got that job. But he did get another offer.
Yep.
So he went and he started working over at Universal in motion capture, performance capture, which was that was great. And from there he began gripping, and now he's been in the business a long time, and he's an old pro. And then my younger son Noah's a producer, and he does real well. And he's got a film coming out called The Climb, which I think is going to do very, very well. And the three of us have done films together. And
That's got to be a great kick for you.
Yeah, it's good fun when we do that.
And your girls?
Gracie, my youngest, is an artist, and she's super fine artist, and teaches art and practices art. And then my oldest child is Lucy Lang, and Lucy spent a decade and more as an assistant district attorney in Manhattan, prosecuting homicide, drug crimes, and spousal abuse, stuff like that. And then 2 years ago, left the DA's office to become the executive director of the Institute for Innovation and Prosecution, which is a think tank located at John Jay College in New York for criminal justice. And she's become a leading writer and speaker about restorative justice. And she actually in August announced that she's running for Manhattan District Attorney, which to replace Cy Vance. It's a crowded field. There are 9 candidates in, and she's been running since August. And the campaign really starts now that the presidential election is behind us. Things will get local. Things will get really heated in the coming months, and this all leads to a primary in June of 2021, where the next Manhattan district attorney will be decided by the people. So
This is the Southern District in New York.
When you say Southern District, I think that's the U.S. Attorney's office.
Okay.
This is New York City. This was Bob Morgenthau was the DA there for 36 years, and Cy Vance has now been DA for a while. I think that Vance, he hasn't said he's leaving or staying, but the smart money says he's probably going to be leaving. And there are 9 candidates in the field to.
And she's running as Lucy.
Lucy Lang. VoteLucyLang.com.
Lucy Lang. Vote Lucy Lang.
VoteLucyLang.com.
I want to reiterate it. VoteLucyLang.com.
And
that's valuable stuff.
All I'd say is check her out. Go to the website, see the policies, see the vision, meet the woman. She's an extraordinary young woman, and she's so committed. She gives me hope. You know, the times we're living in. These are difficult times, you know, and so much despair. Well, she's out there, not just in this campaign, just in the way she goes about her business, in the way she leads the Institute in prosecution, in really trying to make the world a better place, it seems to me.
And Tina, your wife, she's doing good?
She was doing good when I left her this morning, you know.
But you left her with a baby, so she's doing really well now.
I don't think I'm in no trouble right now. You never know. But she's good. She came out here. We have a new Noah, my producer boy. He just had his first child, and so we came out here to visit and see him. We got to see him every couple of weeks if we can, and so she's over there now. And
you won't mention this, but you come from a long line of philanthropists. Your father was Eugene Lang.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little about your dad?
My dad he came from New York City, grew up in Harlem, public school kid, smart kid. Got a scholarship to college, made good, never forgot it that he had, and ultimately made himself a lot of money in his line. He was into inventions and into joint ventures. Back when the world was still a very big place, my dad would be on the road for 3 months a year, going from Burma to Australia to Korea, doing deals. So kind of a basic business was, you make a widget in Metuchen, New Jersey, and he likes your technology. He thinks it's a smart thing that you make. And he would go and say, I like that. That would work in Burma. And the guy would say, Burma? I'm just trying to get a contract with the local, fire department, with the local highway department here to supply them with widgets. He'd say, you give me the technology. That's all I want from you. I'm going to Burma. We're going to make this. We're going to make a factory there. We're going to do this. So what he did was he worked only with small businesses who had good ideas, right? And some of them hit, some of them missed, but enough of them hit good, so he did well. He was just a smart guy with a good heart. And then at some point he began, figuring out ways to give money away effectively, because he never forgot his own scholarship background. And he created a thing called I Have a Dream. Basically what happened was kind of famous story, but whatever. He went up to He the Times did a piece on him just as a New York successful businessman, and he mentioned that he'd gone to PS 121 in Harlem and grade school, and the principal of PS 121 Harlem saw an opportunity, called him, said, "Would you please come up and talk to our graduating sixth graders?" And Gene, my dad, said, "Yeah, why not?" And so he wrote some speech. He got up there. He's looking at this sea of black and Latino kids, realizing whatever he's going to say is just a bunch of bullshit. That's my father there. And just started talking from his heart. And he was a good speaker. My father he could get evangelical when he got himself all kind of worked up and juiced up and everything like that. And he talked about the power of dreaming. And he said, you got to have a dream, you got to have a dream. And in order to make dreams come true in this country, you really, really got to get educated if you can. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make sure that every one of you kids gets an education. And he promised them all that he would pay for their college educations, okay, which got, of course, this stunned hand. And then after that was over, the principal came up and said, that was a beautiful thing to do, and you know what? You don't have to worry about it, because probably only like 2% of these kids are going to graduate from high school anyway. So that was like throwing red meat in front of a lion. And he realized that what we got to do is we got to create programs that are going to, it's not just the reward at the end of completing something. We've got to make it so that you're going to complete your education. You're going to do everything we can to support these children. And so he did. That was in 81. He founded this thing after a very successful career, and he spent the rest of his life. He just died 3 years ago, 98. He spent the rest of his life kind of refining his thoughts on philanthropy and how to give, because money is easy to give if you've got it.
And he founded the New School, correct?
He didn't found the New School, but he did found the undergraduate college there, which is called, strangely enough, Eugene M. Lang College at the New School. So the New School, which is this pretty much lefty kind of university in Greenwich Village in Manhattan, they never had an undergraduate program there. And so about 30 years ago, he founded Eugene M. Lang College there, which is doing well.
And I want to say, just before anybody thinks that you're a son of a rich man, which you are, that had nothing to do with your success because your father didn't give you a cent.
Well, and if I needed a cent, my father would give me a cent. But he didn't leave an inheritance. He was a firm believer in, my grandfather was a member of the IWW. He was an old wobbly. What he was, worked in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. My father had the only thing, my grandfather was very, very proud of his son with all his success, and he was there when my father received the Medal of Freedom from Bill Clinton. But he always said, but he would have made a hell of a good mason.
Yeah, that's great. A real union man.
He was good with his hands. He said, gee, your father was so good with his hands, he would have been a first-rate mason. And that's unusual because most of them were Italian, Yeah. Most of those guys were Italian, but your father, he would have been a very, very fine mason. But instead, he made like, $200 million.
Yeah, but I mean, he gave it away. And I'm sorry for 3 years ago. It's for our loss because Eugene Lang was apparently a hell of a guy. But alligators raise alligators. And to that note, your sister is an activist, and you started a foundation, which you don't want to talk about, I don't know why, Longevity Foundation for cancer.
We're all just, everybody's doing what they can.
Not everybody.
We have a family foundation, and actually during the COVID thing, this has been fascinating because most of the foundation work that we do over the years has to do with establishing programs that are going to go on, that have a long life. But so much of what we've been doing for the past year has been emergency giving. So it's been really, really fascinating just dealing with how do you give, how do you identify giving in an emergency when everybody needs something? And so the meetings, which we have via Zoom, have been really, really very interesting, and you really get to kind of understand the depth of the need out there, But in any case, yeah, that's it. It's good to be part of that. That's all. But I think my father would say, and I'd say the same thing. That's your responsibility as a human being, just to, if you got the money, great. If you don't have the money, you still have responsibility to look out for the other guy. And that's one of the problems that we've got right now in this country.
Which you illustrate pretty much.
I hope so. I mean, I'm trying to a little bit. I don't ever like to want to be Pollyanna about anything because I know the problems are devastating and real and deep, the divisions and everything. But in the end, we sink or swim together as a species. It seems to me, and we're all connected. Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway,
Stephen, thank you so much for being here. I want to give Billy the closing question because I don't know. Any closing thoughts? You have anything?
I was just blown away by the whole interview. I'm delighted you came. I mean, I'm delighted to meet you. Not just because of your celebrity, of course, because you're an interesting guy, and I wish I was still drinking.
We could have spent this whole time talking about Malachi McCourt.
Exactly.
For a few minutes, I thought we were gonna. I thought, you want to talk to Malachi? Talk to Malachi.
I wish I was. You made me want to wish I was still drinking. I would have liked to have tipped a few with you in a day. That's the truth. And I've been dry now for about 11 or 12 years, but you make me want to crack open that bottle one more time, because you're a really interesting guy, man. It's a pleasure. A real pleasure.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Guys. If you hang on, Billy and I have got a little bit more business to take care of.
You want to loan me that $20,000 and I give you back the $1,000 a month? Is that what
I can't believe you guys didn't ask him about his workout regimen. You don't know.
Why don't you ask him to slow dance,
how does
Derek?
he-
That's
how
because
does
you
he
guys
stay
with
in
the
such good
muscles.
shape?
You know?
Why don't you
That's you
ask
guys
him?
with the
Derek,
muscles.
why don't you
It
ask
never
him?
occurred to you?
Yes.
Not
He's
even a little bit.
He's getting the shit kicked out of him on Avatar.
Okay.
He's getting the shit kicked out of him on Don't Breathe. He better be in shape.
And you can't age. I mean, if this thing is going to take 2 decades,
It's
you can't.
20 years.
You can't have a gut.
No.
I mean, you got to be.
I'll tell you the key to the whole thing.
Yeah.
The key to it is yoga. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. Yoga is. I mean, I tell you something. I've been doing yoga now for 10 years, and you want to know something? I'm flexible. And you say, how flexible are you? I'll tell you how flexible I am. I'm so flexible. I could put my foot in my mouth and my foot up my ass at the same time.
That's flexible.
That's pretty flexible.
I mean, my head up my ass. I fucked it up. I could put my foot in my mouth and my head up my ass at the
That's
same
flexible.
time. I wrote that joke.
Did you?
Mind if I steal it? I'm
So
here.
don't tell me I'm not a comic, Frank.
You are a see what I said?
You know what they say? Good writers borrow, great writers steal. You don't mind if I steal that line?
It's yours, baby.
Thanks very much, brother.
So now can we do our football picks?
Oh Jesus! You want to take a bow? What are you 5-1 now?
Yeah, I'm 5-1.
And I'm a bookie, and I'm 500, right?
Yeah.
And the only reason I won last week, I mean, I continually get it shoved up my ass. I mean, you know, I'm always the guy. I say that couldn't happen to anybody. I'm up by 7 points, getting 3.5, and I lose in overtime. But last week, it was the other way around. 2 weeks ago, Cleveland, Cincinnati. I'm getting 3.5. They go 80 yards with no time on the clock. They score. I says I'm screwed again. They win by, if they kick the field goal, they win by 4. I'm dead, and they miss the extra point. So I said, look. I got bailed out, so I'm even money. So my pick this week is. Let me go into the envelope.
How much time did you spend on this?
Oh, this one came right up. Yeah, let's see. For 500, here's a guy with 500. Don't listen to me. Don't put the rent on it.
Stephen, I call him Nostradamus, Nostradamus,
Everything I
because
say
his picks stink. Nostradamus.
Well, you know what? You gotta own it. If that's the way it is, you gotta own it. All right, this week Miami is a 4.5-point dog. The Arizona Cardinals at home. I like the dog. I like Miami on the road against Arizona. Plus 4.5.
Oh my God.
You gotta take the listen. The bookies don't put nothing up there for nothing. I
my
like those
God.
shots. I like the dogs, man. I always pick dogs.
So now I'm going to learn what game I have to pick. So
Yeah.
Derek, can you tell me what game I have to pick?
You want 2 or you want 1?
I just want
Just the
one.
one.
Okay, so we'll give you Seattle Seahawks
Yeah.
against Buffalo Bills. Seattle -3. Buffalo Bills are playing where? At home.
Please. Seattle -3. I want
That's
Seattle.
it?
I want Seattle -3.
That's it. It's like nothing to it. He might as well be picking a 1-horse race. This guy is like, this is the guru. This is the guru himself. We can all stop working. We can all sit home with high-priced company and drink champagne and listen to the guru.
First there was Mike and the Mad Dog. Now there's the Mick and the Mook.
Making a
The
move.
Mick and the Mook.
So next week is our. Well, we should have Stephen on next week also, but next week we're going to do an homage to the Veterans Day.
It's Veterans Day.
We got a retired general coming on. We got a retired colonel, and we got a retired military intelligence officer who just happened to be in Vietnam, and happens to be Mr. Harris,
Derek's father.
Derek's father.
Wonderful.
So
Who could figure intelligence in Derek's father?
You should know it, baby.
Who could figure?
well, with that, I want to thank Stephen Lang for appearing with us today.
Just great interview, Stephen. Thank you.
Billy's going to probably be 5-6.
Put the horns on it. Go ahead. Give me the Yamulka. Give me the horns.
The Malokia. And with that, we'll sign off and say
Thanks for looking in.
see
We
you next
appreciate
week.
it.
Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you next week.